We would like to thank MK Films and Submarine Entertainment for providing us with this title. Laura Poitras was born in Boston. She is an Oscar and Pulitzer Prize-winning filmmaker and journalist. Her directorial work includes the shorts Oh Say Can You See, The Program, Death of a Prisoner, Project X, Terror, Contagion, and features My Country, The Oath, Citizen 4, and she was here a couple of years ago with All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. Mark Obenhaus is a producer, director, and writer of documentary television and film. His work has been awarded numerous awards, including 5 national Emmys. In addition to his TV series and movies, his directorial work includes Nomadic Lives, Einstein on the Beach, The Changing Image of Opera, and Steep. And in their latest work, the two have paired up to take on the larger-than-life figure, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh. This film is literally 20 years in the making. When Laura first went to Seymour to try and make this film, he said no, and now we have this film, and I am so happy to have both of them here. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Laura Poitras and Mark Obenhaus.
It's really special to be back in Toronto with this film, especially as Mark and I were outside and we saw people coming in. I'm like, oh, good, it's a lot of young people in this audience. So I'm curious, a show of hands, and be honest, how many people know Seymour Hersh? No. So a lot of people know Seymour Hersh, but a lot of people, you're going to get to meet somebody really who's changed history, and we're so excited to introduce this man to a larger audience, and also want to let you know that after the screening he'll be here for the Q&A, so yeah, it'll be worth sticking around. So yeah, it's really wonderful. I want to thank the festival for all their support of documentary films. It means the world to us. Mark, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. I want to follow on Laura's idea that we're concerned with the audience and the age of the audience, because I think that Cy is a man for all ages. And I hope when you see this film, and you will conclude the same. He's a good friend of both of ours, and this is really a passion project for both of us. So we thank you and thank the festival. And I just say this is my first time here, just enormously impressed with the entire operation. So thank you.
Please cover up and don't get stick around afterwards.
Cy Hersh. See, that's worth staying up for. Cy, I was thinking about your reporting during Watergate, and that the very famous film, All the President's Men, got made about Woodward Bernstein. And I wonder if you were thinking at that time, like, well, maybe a movie could be made about me.
Farthest thing from my mind. Really, just never, I mean, Laura will tell you she was haunting me for years. I just didn't want to do it. You know, because also there's another reason, which is, you know, I'm still in the business. You know, and so you don't want to taint yourself with favorable publicity.
And so after Laura and Mark, I understand, have been separately exploring the possibility to make a film with you, what finally made you say yes?
I don't know, but the film's a lot better than I thought it would be.
Laura, you started 20 years ago early in your career, you most recently at that point made My Country, your film set in Iraq, was pre-Snowden. You asked him then, you gotta know, what made you keep coming back?
I was obsessed. I mean, I really was obsessed. It was an idea that I never got out of my head because of his body of work that was so monumental, so important for me. I think also for the country and for the world, to the atrocities that he's exposed, and also just representing, like, in the press, the importance of having journalists that don't accept the bullshit. And that not just from the government, but also from the institutions that they're working for. Like, he was constantly speaking truth, and particularly when, in the context that I first asked him, was I just made a film about the war and occupation of Iraq, and I just thought it was a catastrophe. And I thought it was also a catastrophe in the press, not just what was happening on the ground. And Cy was the rare exception of somebody who was saying, this is wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And so I loved his work, but then when I reached out to him, 2005, and then I met him, and then I was like, oh wow, he's a great character too. So it was kind of, and so every few years I'd be like, hey Cy, and I'd reach out, we saw each other, and I would ask, and he would say no, and I would ask, and he would say no, and finally he said yes.
Mark, in your work at PBS Frontline, you work in a stable of lots of great investigative reporters. What makes Cy unique amongst his peers?
Well, in the beginning, there's a section about Chicago and Cy's accidental embrace of journalism. And I think he says at that point that it was something he felt passionate about immediately. And one of the things that I appreciate about Cy and that's in the work that we've done together is this incredible energy and this desire to pursue the truth and the incredible, almost, dare I say, childlike excitement about reporting. And he is today unchanged. I made a film called Buying the Bomb where I traveled with him all across the country, chasing him. A lot of the footage in here of him back in the day running around is from that film. And he was just incredibly enthusiastic about the process of being a reporter. And for me, it was just an incredibly exciting thing to observe and then to put onto film. And I think this film captures the same energy in a different period of his life. So I think that he's a reporter through and through.
I'm going to go to the audience for questions in a minute, so think of good ones only. But Cy, I want to follow up on something in the film where they ask you about the psychology of sources, and you're kind of dismissive about it, but like, why wouldn't that be interesting to understand what? Well, I mean, first of all, these are the people that you rely on for your livelihood, so maybe it's worth understanding what makes them tick. But can I ask you about that?
I'm still a reporter, so the last thing I want to do is talk about. I'll say generally, the people that come to me, which does happen, are people who are in the intelligence world or the military world, or what you will sometimes in the State Department world, who take this oath of loyalty to the Constitution and who really believe it. It's not meant to be loyal to the general or the Secretary of State. It's meant to be loyal to the values of the Constitution. There is that strain. There's that strain among Americans, I'm sure in any country, people who really believe in the values of, I don't know, what you will, 10 Commandments, just telling the truth. So those people I come upon, and I didn't like sharing with Laura and Mark.
We get that.
And their gang.
you know, we sort of broke him down though a little bit over time. I mean,
We get that too.
I mean, the first scene in the film was the first day of shooting, and so you know, he shared. I mean, and you know, no jokes aside, he shared everything. I mean, he was, you know, he was so 100%. Showed up, always answered every question, always was honest, and when we got close to something he cares most about, which is protecting his sources, he got nervous, but it was very moving how generous he was throughout this process.
All right, let me go to the audience for some questions. Let's see a hand right there.
Yes, I'd like to know what newspaper, print journalism today, in your opinion, is the most objective and reliable?
What newspaper today is the most objective and reliable?
There must be something in God's world. So actually, one of the great truth tellers are the reporters of Al Jazeera that were in Gaza, and which is why they were so significantly targeted, which they were. And so there's one track of people, and you know, there's a lot of American reporters out there that could be a lot better if they didn't happen to be working for the various newspapers they work for. That's always a problem. Editors generally. And when I was at the Times, I was at the Times for 7 or 8 years. In crucial years during Watergate and Vietnam, I was hired to do Vietnam. I would see when a job came open for a relatively, let's say, senior editor to a more senior editor. They never picked the best person. They picked the one that they knew would be more malleable. And I saw that in the 70s. I saw that time and time again. The selection process was always geared to appeasement, call it continuity, but never to get somebody there who's going to sort of kick ass, which is what a lot of times is needed. And so I did see that, and it was very discouraging to watch it from the inside. Although I had a pleasant time there. I had no bother.
Actually, Laura, since Sai's putting the microphone in front of you, you've had the opportunity to collaborate with lots of different news organizations, particularly the Snowden work. I mean, I wonder how you reflect on the state of larger news organizations.
Yeah, I kind of share Sai's criticism of institutions. I think that they're, you know, sort of inherently conservative, and I think they constrain news oftentimes. And I mean, particularly like the Snowden reporting that I did. I mean, there's a reason that Snowden reached out to me, because I was independent and I didn't have anyone who was going to tell me what I could and couldn't do. And then I had something that they wanted. And then if you have something they want, then they want to work with you. But working within those institutions, I think, is really tough. If you're somebody who is going to go after power over and over again.
Mark, it's something.
We were actually emailing about this morning. I think that the situation now, vis-a-vis reporting in the United States, is worse than it's been at any point in, I think, our collective history, in that there is so much intimidation of reporters, of institutions, there's no longer inspector generals in various institutions that you could rely on as sources. They're simply, this is a period of intense intimidation of the press, and I think that it's inhibiting many people from acting in the ways they formerly might have.
All right, cheery reflection, sir. On the aisle here.
Thank you, Mr. Hersh, and to the filmmakers for your service. My question is, I was titillated by the bin Laden box that kept showing up in the background. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
No, I'm sorry, just say the
a
little louder.
I was very curious about the bin Laden box that kept showing up in the background.
And the story from 2015, I wonder if you could talk about that 10 years on.
Oh, I'm so happy you raised the story that was killed by an editor. If you leave a job, that was a good job. That's really cool. Obama was seen by a lot of people as a relief, you know, call it an angry black man coming into power. You know, somebody was gonna really shake it up, and it didn't happen, that's all. It just did not happen. In fact, I learned early on that he actually supported the war in Afghanistan despite all his campaign promises. So, you know, the trouble is, you learn not to fall in love with an image because they're never correct. I don't know why presidents have to be such cowards and go along with force and power. This one, of course, now we're dealing with essentially with a narcissistic madman. So that makes it pretty easy to be, you know, not worry about where he's going to be. But you know, Biden was a big disappointment, and there were a lot of lies told him about it. You know, anyway, there were a lot of lies told about him, and I couldn't get him in print, so I had to leave another job. The only thing I'll say is I left 3 jobs in my career: AP, New Yorker, New York Times. There never was a farewell party for me.
All right, I'm gonna look in this direction this time. Oh, I see 2 hands. I'll do the one on my right, in the middle.
What project are you currently working on, and what story is most important to tell in this moment in time?
What project are you currently working on? What are the stories you most want to tell in this moment of time?
Is it a question for Sai?
For all of you.
Okay, I mean, I think you're asking the wrong people because we don't really talk about what we're working on. You want to talk about what you're working on?
What do you see in the film? I don't remember. Oh, well, you know, it takes a lot of genius to figure out that Gaza was genocide. The press finally did. So, but my theory is I don't think people are going to survive very much, many of the Palestinians, but I don't know that. But that's what I'm interested in, and the pathology of Bibi and others in Israel, which is acute. And so I am very interested in that, and I have friends there, and a lot of friends there, believe it or not. And I wrote a book about the Israeli bomb many years ago with the aid of people who are still there, some of them in my good positions. Anyway, but what are you going to do? It's not as if you write something, we're going to have a president that's going to say, God damn, that's right, let's get on it. So, you know, it's very complicated where we are right now journalistically. And I expect a lot of emigration to Canada coming soon.
And Laura's working on the new Taylor Swift film. Okay, the other hand up in the middle.
How has the relationship between military and intelligence organizations and the press sort of shifted since you first started reporting on My Lai?
So the question is, how is the relationship between military, intelligence, communication, do you say?
And the press.
And the press.
Yeah.
Military intelligence and its relationship to the press, and how has it shifted since My Lai?
Well, obviously it wasn't very good during the time of the murder of a lot of people in My Lai in 1968. And so, it officially is awful, but I have found, it's a cliche, but I have found there are always people in the military with real integrity. And if you can find them and they learn to trust you, you can learn things. The same with people in the intelligence community. There are people who maybe join with, I don't know, blind eyes about what really is going on. But then when they learn it, some of them are not afraid to do something about it. But that's not always.
Simon, what's the longest you've ever had to cultivate a source, having conversations about football or whatever before you finally got something from them?
How in the hell did I remember? It's not pimpery. I'm not being a pimp, but that's my job, is to find people that are bright and that are known to be bright, that are known to be critical. And I wrote about one. There's one we talked about Kiley, who ended up as Helm's personal assistant for a couple of years, and having him for a source was probably the most important thing in terms of the stories I was writing about the CIA spying on Americans and some of the stuff that was going on around the world. But that's rare.
Talk about his motivation, Kylie.
Oh, Kylie was yeah, sure. My mentor here asked me to talk about his motivation. We're not on film, but this is what happens. And then what did your father think? And your mom at that time. We get that too. No, I'm exaggerating. Isn't that? It was close enough though. Anyway, he's a guy out of Notre Dame, very, very bright. And as you saw, immensely attractive man. Just also, I just mean, not just looks, he was just a guy of probity. And I didn't know anything about him, but I heard he left early. And I will tell you, Bob Kiley, if you look it up, later went on, he went to Boston and went to work for the mayor of Boston on transit. And then Mr. Kiley ended up as the commissioner of transportation for New York City and then for London. He ended up being and at one point, the magazine which I was then working for, the New Yorker, did a long, long profile of him, and it struck me as so funny because nobody knew him better than I did. And so he was a man of tremendous talents, and really believed in America, and he got very disillusioned. And so I just learned about his unhappiness, and I do what reporters do. I called him up and said, I want to talk to you. You know, I know you're not happy, and we started having dinners in Boston and Back Bay.
I want to say, for how many journalists are in the room or are studying to be journalists, right? So there were some amazing stories that I would say, like he learned that Kylie was unhappy, so he's like, oh, I want to talk to that guy. Another thing Cy would talk about is when people retired from the military, that was actually a good time to knock on people's doors. I mean, I think that's how the chemical and biological warfare. Do you want to talk about that? Talk about that.
Yeah. It's just common sense. The trick about the military is that, like people in the electronic, the NSA stuff, national security eavesdropping stuff, I'm sure you in Canada worry about a lot. You should. The thing is that I learned that I was facing the draft, and I jumped into the army to avoid 2 years, and I did 6 months as learning how to kill, and that's literally what the phrasing was. And so I understood something about military bases, which is they have local newspapers, and so I would go to the Pentagon where they stopped doing it. Not because of me necessarily, but maybe they stopped doing it long ago. I would go start reading newspapers, the local weekly or bi-weekly paper, and they would always say, so-and-so, Lieutenant General so-and-so, head of the NSA unit here in this base in Okinawa, has retired to Middletown, Georgia, or something like that. And there's a clue. And so I would do that stuff as a kid reporter. No, as a reporter for the New York Times, I did a lot of that to find people you saw that scene with Paul Meatloaf. He had his foot blown off. And the next day I learned Paul Meatloaf, the next day they went on a patrol. I mean, just like yesterday was just another day. That group went on patrol. That group of undisciplined, but clearly, I don't know, anyway. They went on patrol, and he stepped on a landmine, and his leg was blown off, his foot was blown off. And the reason I wanted to see him is that the kids I talked to from that company, not all killed, some just watched in horror, and of course wouldn't say nothing because their life was in danger from their colleagues if they did. And he was saying, God has punished me, Lieutenant Cowley, and God has punished you. So I really went looking for him. And what you don't see is I probably spent $500 in nickels and dimes calling information places in Indiana. I knew it was in Indiana, and I finally found a name with that spelling. And so when I first sat down with him, I said, let me see your stump. And he took off his boots. I looked at his stump, and he told me how long it took to get ready. And I did that not really in I just wondered what it felt like. I wonder what it felt like to have one day been involved in killing, and the next day I knew what he'd done, and the next day, having his own. He thought God had given him a message. I really do believe that, but anyway, I don't believe God did, by the way, but that's what he thought. And so then I asked him what happened, and that's when, as you saw in the film, he began just blah 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 expiation. But I've learned one thing is I don't hesitate if I see somebody living to say, so tell me, was that in the war? What happened? Because it's just amazing how many people don't want to do that. I don't advertise it. I mean, it's a good thing. I'm just saying it worked for me. It's like that Colonel General. I said, you shot yourself in the knee. I worked with him when I was a reporter in the Pentagon for a couple of years, and he was a good guy. And he also said, now he said, F you. He also said, so what are you doing for a living now, Hersh? You're not working here anymore, right? He really laid right back into me. But, military guys are different. And they can talk about things, bodily things, in ways most people can't, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I wasn't playing a trick with Paul. I just wondered what it was like. And I wasn't befriending him. I just asked him a question that a lot of people, I guess, would. And maybe unconsciously I was trying to do something, but I didn't realize it at the time. Anyway, it was an amazing story. And that whole thing was an adventure. The thing that really pisses me off to this day, until after I found Milan. Paul Milo, he was on CBS, Walter Cronkite was at the big show. And I had not one call from a reporter, even though I've been in the press business for years and I knew 100 reporters. Not one call saying, anything I do to help, is there a piece of the story you want to share? I would have done something, given them some names. So that's interesting to me. There was a real fear about getting cross with America in that war, just as there's a real fear now about getting cross with Trump and his own internal madness.
Let me ask you this, because oftentimes in a documentary film, we'll look at a documentary film that'll be about the Vietnam era, or it'll be about the war in Iraq, and you get this one slice of history. And I think a power of this film is this breadth of several decades, which reveals to us the way in which the same mistakes happen, the same stonewalling, the same institutional corruption. And this may be beyond what you all do for a living, trying to expose things, but I wonder how you reflect on the cyclical nature of this.
I mean, this is a film that's absolutely, it's a half a century of atrocities. It's told through the lens of size reporting, and it begins. I mean, the first 2 minutes of the film, you get the story, the sort of a parable about chemical and biological, where you see all this evidence of exactly what has happened and size, and then you have the military saying, well, we don't know what happened here. And I think what this film is attempting to do is try to expose the lies so that when it happens again in real time, we don't fall for it. And the right questions get answered, and the press asks the right questions. I mean, so that's, if there's any hope for the film, and why to sort of tell this sort of cycles, that's what it's about. And as sad as I was that Cy wouldn't talk to me 20 years ago, it also then makes the lens wider. And I, unfortunately, it's not optimistic. I wish this film had a different ending.
One of the things I appreciate about this film is the way it ends, and I think it speaks to this exact point that things have not changed. The partisanship that separates the country is the same, and the ability to deny reality is still the same. And I think that the conclusion I reach from watching the film is that we're stuck in the same place.
It's late. We're going to wrap it up here. You're one of the first audiences in the world to see Cover Up. I want to remind you that you can vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. You can do that up until Saturday night, so please use your vote. Maybe this film reminds you the value of doing that. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks especially to Mark Obenhaus, Seymour Hersh, and Laura Poitras.